Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Thoughts at 3 live online assembly. My name is Matt, and I am part of the schools team at Southampton City Mission. We are an independent Christian charity that serves the church in Southampton as the church serves the city. And normally, the schools team, myself and Ellie, and our volunteer team leaders and volunteer team members would be going into schools all across the region with our question of faith days, our transition support sessions, prayer spaces, and assemblies. But of course, we can't do that right now because of the continuing lockdown situation. And so we have been broadcasting online for the past, I think we're at the end of week 4 now, is that right? Week 4? Wow. So we've done a month worth of assemblies now, which is fantastic. And schools have also started to access our online materials as well, our online home learning pack. If you want to know anything more about that, you can email us, get in touch on the details that are scrolling across your screen at the bottom. Today is going to be pretty similar to what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. We are going to answer some of your questions later on our topic of discipleship. And I'm going to invite Ellie to join us for that. We'll end with a prayer, of course, as we always do, and we will start by introducing our topic for this afternoon. Please like us if you're watching on Facebook. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Please say hello in the comments. Let us know your name and where you're from. If you go to school, let us know which school you know us from, and add your questions onto the comments as well for us to answer later, which should be all about discipleship today. Now, as you probably saw in the trailer, there was a Rubik's Cube. Here is one of my Rubik's Cubes. I've got lots of different Rubik's Cubes. You can see that it's all mixed up. But what has a Rubik's Cube got to do with discipleship? Well, the word disciple means, most people think it means follower, somebody who follows. But actually, the word in the original language, Aramaic, or the language that Jesus spoke, which is close to sort of modern day Greek, means a learner, somebody who learns, and somebody who helps others to learn the same thing. And you know, all through our lives, we are lifelong learners, or we should be lifelong learners. Right from the very early moments of our life until all the way at the end, when our life here on earth ends, we are learning constantly. And at the moment, obviously, lots and lots of people are learning in unusual ways because they are at home. Normally, children all across the country, all across the world, would be learning in their schools, but they're currently at home and learning from their parents. And you know, this Rubik's Cube is a lot like us, in every single one of us. There are lots of different influences in our lives. And you could think of these different colors as the different aspects of our lives, maybe. For anyone who doesn't know what a Rubik's Cube is, it was one of my favorite toys growing up as a child. And what you have to do is to try and get all of the colors on the same side as each other. So one side should be yellow, one side should be white, another green and blue and red and so on. And you can move these parts of the cube around like that. But it's a bit tricky to do. Some people can do it really, really fast, and there's like sub 5-second times when people have solved these cubes really, really quickly. I can't do that. But if you think about these different colors of different facets of your life, different aspects of your life, you know, maybe your interests, maybe your hobbies, maybe the type of music you like, maybe the type of clothes you like to wear, maybe the type of books that you like to read, or the films that you like to watch, or maybe the creative activities that you have. And there's lots of different input coming into our life. And sometimes we get a little bit mixed up, much like this Rubik's Cube is here. And we try and sort things out ourselves. And so like moving around the sides of a Rubik's Cube, we try and move things around to help us to know which way we should go and to make things straight and understandable in our lives. But the problem is sometimes we end up getting more mixed up than we were in the first place. And for Christians, we believe that actually it's only when we give our lives to God that he is able to straighten all that out. It's only by following Jesus that he is able to help us learn the best way to live. So it's almost as if I take this Rubik's Cube and just throw it in the air. And then, as you can see there, it's completely straightened out with all the right colors on all the right sides. pretty amazing, and it happened in a moment. And for Christians, we believe that that's how God can help us too, that just in a moment, as we start to believe in Jesus, we follow that call, or we respond to that call, where he says, follow me, and our lives can change in that instant. And over time, he can help us to learn his way, which is different to the way of most other things in the world. The world will tell you you need to get rich, you need to be famous, you need to learn as much as you can, eat as much as you can, have as much material possessions as you can. But Jesus' way was very different. And we're going to try and answer some of those questions about being a disciple of Jesus now. So I'm going to invite Ellie in a moment. But before I do that, I'm just going to move across to another part of my home studio here. Oh, a little smile on my face there, because this part always amuses my son, Charlie. I've got a very special message waiting for him today, just to fill this time as I'm moving across to the other part of my studio. So hopefully that made you laugh and chuckle a little bit there, Charlie. Just a little one moment, please message. Now we are going to invite Ellie in to help us answer the questions. So hopefully Ellie is ready to go. Let's just check and see if she's giving me the thumbs up behind the scenes there. She's there, so we're going to invite her in. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. There we go.
Hello.
Hello, Ellie. Hi. Oh, hello. I've done a weird thing. Let me see if I can fix that. There we go. That's better.
Zoom in a bit.
How are you doing today, Ellie?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm very impressed by the Rubik's Cube trick.
Yeah,
Rubik's Cube.
Cube, not Rubik's tube.
I'm very impressed. I can't even do them slowly, but you just did it in like a split second. So.
Yeah, well, there you go. So we've got some questions to answer today, Ellie, on this topic of discipleship. And our first question that we've got, because I don't think we've got any, we've got a couple coming in on the chat. So, but please do add some more as you're watching. Add your questions about discipleship, what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, in on the chat there. While we're waiting for those, our first question we've got this afternoon, Ellie, if you could answer this, is how many disciples did Jesus have?
Good question. So there are different answers to this, really. And it kind of depends what you mean by disciples, because some people think of disciples as the 12 apostles. Those are the 12 followers Jesus had that he kind of picked and chose, who were the first people he taught. He was with him in his life when he was here on earth. And so some people think of that as 12. But really, like you've mentioned, disciples kind of means learner. So for Christians, we believe actually the number is much bigger than that. We can read in the Bible about Jesus having lots of other followers and people who were learning from him. We know in the story I shared last week, when the early church first began, they were going out and spreading the message. And even on one day, 3,000 people became followers and believers in Jesus. And that message of Jesus spread all over the world to the point where actually today there are 2.3 billion Christians. And Christians would say that we are all disciples of Jesus. So that makes up about a third, about 30% of the world's population. So I would say an awful lot of disciples of Jesus.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Ellie. The second question we've got here, which I'm going to take a crack at, is why did people become disciples of Jesus? And in the time that Jesus lived, there were many teachers, or they called them then rabbis, in the Jewish culture, who all believed different things about the Jewish law, the commandments, the teachings, the regulations in the Old Testament, the first half of the Bible, which was the Bible that Jesus would have read, actually. And lots of different teachers had lots of different interpretations, lots of different thoughts about these laws and commandments. And one of them might focus on mercy, another one might focus on judgment, another one might focus on being holy. And each of these teachers had a different way of focusing on different laws or teaching different laws. And that was called their yoke, not yoke like an egg, but yoke like an ox, Y-O-K-E. And if you wanted to follow that person, if you thought that the same thing about the different laws as they did, then you would yoke yourself with them, much like two ox can be yoked together to pull a plow. And you would follow them and you would learn your way from them. And so I think the reason that people became disciples of Jesus, because he was also called rabbi or teacher. He said that his yoke was easy and his burden was light. His way of understanding the laws was the way of love. He said that God was a compassionate God. He said that God loved people, even those on the outskirts, even those on the margins of society, that the other teachers, the other rabbis said were not welcome in God's kingdom. Jesus said, no, everyone is welcome in my kingdom. And so I think people became disciples of Jesus because they identified with the way that he was teaching, the way that he interpreted those laws, the way that he emphasized love, the way that he emphasized compassion and grace and inclusion. And he wanted people to be forgiving and forgiven. And so I think lots of people who would have otherwise been outcast identified with this new way of thinking. And also people actually from all walks of life, fishermen, accountants, teachers, even some of the Pharisees, Sadducees, they also were attracted, like Nicodemus, attracted to this message of Jesus, this new way of living, this way of living in love. And people all through the last 2,000 years, even today, have become disciples of Jesus because they believe the same things. They believe that God is a God of love and that he showed himself in this person of Jesus, who showed us the best way to live. And they want to learn how to live that way from him and also help others to learn that as well. So that's probably why people became disciples of Jesus. Now, we've got a question here on the chat, only the one, I think, as far as I can see. So please do keep adding those in. Charlie asks, or rather Lucy, maybe on behalf of Charlie, asks, can anyone be a disciple? That's a great question. Would you like to have a go answering that, Ellie? Can anyone be a disciple of Jesus?
Yeah, well, I think you've, in a way, almost already answered it. That Jesus's message was for everyone. It isn't just those special few that get picked. You don't have to be really religious or really in lots of knowledge of things about Jesus, but being a disciple is just choosing to follow Jesus and learn more about him. So I would say, yes, absolutely, anyone can do it. You just want to try and find out a bit more. And actually, if you do choose to become a Christian, for Christians, we say that's really easy to do. There's kind of just something simple, and it goes a bit like this. All you have to do is say a prayer, which can be out loud or in your head. And when you do that, you have to say, yes, I believe in Jesus. I'm going to choose to follow him. You have to say sorry, because we know we're not very good. We make mistakes. And so you say sorry to God for all of those bad things we've done. And then you just choose to live a life with God, following Jesus, being one of his disciples. So absolutely open to anyone.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ellie. That's a really great answer. Hopefully that answers your question, Charlie, or Lucy, depending on whose it was. And if you have a question, please add that to the comments. We're going to do one more frequently asked question and then come back to the comments to see if there's any more. So the final one we've got here is, what does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus? And I think for me, Ellie, being a disciple of Jesus means that I live in such a way that I know that if I mess up, if I get it wrong, actually it's okay. I'm forgiven and I can try it again. I don't have to live with guilt or condemnation. I don't have to feel necessarily bad about what the mistakes I've made, as long as I say sorry, as long as I ask for forgiveness from God and then receive that grace. And it means that I love others around me. So Jesus said that the greatest thing we can do with our lives is to love God, all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love others as we love ourselves. And that's part of the reason why actually I work for Southampton City Mission, because we show love to people all across the city, whether they are Christians or Muslims or Hindus or Jewish or no faith at all, or atheists, whatever it is. We show love to them by giving them food when they're hungry and by giving them clothes when they're naked or need new clothes. And so that's part of what it means to be a disciple, is to show that love to others regardless to what they believe. That's for me anyway. What does it mean to you to be a disciple of Jesus, Ellie?
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said there, Matt. But I would also say for me, it is a way of life. It is a choice I've made. And for me, when I choose to follow Jesus, it means I try and think of that in all areas of my life. So when I have a decision to make, I think, what would Jesus do? When I am with my friends, am I saying things and doing things that I think Jesus would do? And it is literally just trying to follow Jesus and be more like him. So it's not always easy. I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do, but it's definitely helped me in my life to kind of give me some direction, to give me some purpose, in the same way that, I think God has led me to work with Southampton City Mission now. That was part of his plan, because I followed him and listened to what he said. And it just really gives me joy and hope in my life as well, knowing I've got God with me and a really great example in Jesus to follow.
Great, thanks, Ellie. That kind of leads us on actually to another question that's come in on the comments from Jordan, which says, how do you know if you are a disciple? And I think that's a really great question. I think actually we are all disciples of one thing or another. Actually, who we are as people is made up of all of the people around us who influence us. And actually our character, our personalities, our likes and our dislikes, scientifically, they've done studies which say that we are the sum, or all the different parts added together, of the 5 people that are closest to us in our lives, which is a little bit scary if you think about the people that you're closest to and maybe how similar in some ways you are to them. And so actually we're all disciples of something. But for Christians, we believe that we are most importantly a disciple of Jesus. And if we are learning from him by reading the Bible, by praying regularly, by listening to God's voice, then I think we can be sure that we are a disciple of Jesus. And also if we're helping others to learn about Jesus as well, if they want to be a disciple. So learning and helping others learn. I think that's a good way of being sure. If we're not learning, then actually I would say if we're not learning, we're not living. But if we're not learning, we're definitely not a disciple. There was thousands and thousands of people that followed Jesus. But following someone doesn't necessarily mean you're learning from them. So if you're learning, you're a disciple. Hope that makes sense, Jordan. Great. Well, thanks for all of your comments today. They've been super great to have you on board. I can see that there are some people saying hello who are with us as usual. Great to see Lily here again. She said that she couldn't wait to see what happened today. So I hope you enjoyed that, Lily. It's lovely to have you with us again. And there are lots of other people watching as well. So hello to Bernie and to Bumper, who's watching as well. Great to have you with us, as well as all of the regulars too. Now, we are going to say a prayer in a moment to finish. But Ellie, you're coming back next week on Monday with another craft special, aren't you?
Oh, yes, indeed. I'm very excited about this one. We had a lot of good response from the last craft. It was great to see how many people were getting involved. So on Monday, I hope you can join me for another craft special. And just to give you a little sneak peek, we are going to have a go at making these prayer jars or prayer bottles. And basically, if you want to get involved, you're going to need to get a plastic bottle or a jar, whichever you find in your recycling bin, at the ready over this weekend. We'll send out messages with other things you need, but maybe start thinking if you've got one of these available, or save it if you finish a bottle this weekend. Great.
Is there anything else they might need to go in that bottle, Ellie?
Well, definitely some water, but I think we've all got that. And if you have any glitter, that will be brilliant. So if you've got glitter, get some of that. But I will chat through some other options you've got as well if you don't have glitter.
Okay. Brilliant. All right. Thanks, Ellie. Well, have a lovely weekend, Ellie, and we will see you on Monday, 3 p.m. for that craft special. Take care. Bye-bye, Ellie. Fantastic. We're going to say a prayer now to end our time together this afternoon. If you would like to agree with the prayer and make it your own prayer, then at the end, when I say amen, you can also say amen if you want to. You don't have to. That's your choice. If you don't want to, that's fine. It will go over your head and nothing will happen. But if you do want to agree, then you can say amen. Simply means I agree. Take a moment just to be quiet and to have a think about who you follow in your life, who you're learning from, and actually who's learning from you. Just think about that for a moment as I pray. Dear God, thank you for your son, Jesus, who called people to follow him and learn his way of love when he was alive on this earth about 2,000 years ago. Help us to think about those who we learn from in our lives, that they might be people who love us and have our best interests at heart. Please also make us aware of others around us who learn from our example and the way that we think, the way we act, and the way we speak. Help us to learn from Jesus and to help others learn from him too. If you would like to agree, you can say amen. Now, as I said, on Monday next week, there will be a craft special, which Ellie will be leading us through with prayer jars. If you've got any other questions about discipleship, please add them into the comments there. Otherwise, we hope that you have a fantastic weekend. Thank you to everyone who's watched online with us, and hello, and thank you to everyone who's maybe watching on catch up. We know that there are some schools who watch the next day because they already finished by 3 o'clock, especially all the guys at Sarasbury Junior School who we know watch. So hello to you guys. Please do let us know if you have any comments or questions about the topics next week. We're going to try and get those up well in advance next week, so you can let us know your questions for when we go live. Otherwise, as I said, have a fantastic weekend. God bless you, stay safe, and see you next week.